Thank you, everyone who's here listening. Before we start, full disclaimer. We are not professionals nor certified stockbrokers. We do sell, buy, and trade stocks, but at our own discretion. The content that we talk about is based on our own opinion, not fact, and the content is for entertainment purposes only. Remember, what you invest is at your own risk. If you know nothing about stock investing, we highly suggest you seek professional help. Due to the content of the show, this is for mature audience only. Welcome to the Hustle, the Struggle Investment Podcast, where two regular guys not from Wall Street come together and simply talk stocks and investments. We're here to give you the raw and uncut stories of an everyday trader. Tune in and zone out. Let's talk money. Make sure I'm all set up. I'm good. I can hear myself nice. All right. You go ahead and just say something just so I know you get
Mic check. Mic check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you good. Great feedback. All right. What's up, everyone? Today is May 23rd. It's a beautiful Sunday here in the Bay Area. I'm having the time to knock out an episode, about to do episode 9. And fortunately, I have a new guest on the show.
Yes.
He's a friend. I met him through a mutual friend. Come to find out, he's in investing, relatively new. But again, as I said in prior episodes, and marketed as well, that this is grassroots investing, basically meaning that you don't have to be a professional, certified or anything. This is just everyday people that want to think about investing, and the whole idea of this podcast is just giving people the opportunity to know what it is to invest into the stock market or just invest in general, regardless of where you start at. If you have a 9-to-5, you have a career, it's definitely important for everyone to know the benefits of financial investing and growing your wealth or growing your money, however you want to describe, but also to know the consequences. Financial knowledge is the key, especially when we live in this capitalist society in the States. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy to have this guest. About to introduce him, but before I do that, just want to say welcome to the Hustle, the Struggle Investment Podcast. As always, got to do my shameless plugs. I'm on YouTube, so please follow the YouTube by searching at the Hustle, the Struggle Investment Podcast. In addition, you have the Instagram, you got Facebook, you have Twitter, all at the Hustle, the Struggle. And I'm streaming this podcast on Anchor with 7 other platforms, with Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts as well. So make sure that you come through, support. And in addition to streaming on Anchor, Anchor has a setup where you can actually give a donation contribution per month. I think the lowest is $1.99 and the highest is $9.99. But if you would love to just support and continue this so I can build, get more equipment, or, use this money to build a school somewhere, No, I'm kidding. But anyways, if you guys can support, I would love that. But now let's welcome the guest. I want to welcome a friend, Kadir. And I forgot one thing. We have to talk about the topic. So the topic of this episode, we just mentioned it earlier. I forgot that fast. What is your dream investor lifestyle? So this should be a good one. It's going to be just a casual conversation, more of like the lavish talk of investing, so you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So Kadir, you can just give a small introduction of who you are, where you at financially, then we can just lead right into the topic.
Sure. So my name is Kadir. My background is, I grew up in the DC area, went to school in Atlanta, and moved to the Bay Area after college and jumped right into the tech scene around 08, 09. So right after the economy crashed and things were starting to rebuild, but still, a nervous time to be joining the working world. I actually got introduced to investing through work, so as a tech employee, we were granted shares in the company. So I was at Google and I got my first taste in investing by getting granted shares at Google and seeing that grow, right? So seeing something that was given to me at one price, I check back a month later, it's another price. I check back a month later, it's another price, and saying, oh, okay, wow. So I just hold this or I can sell this up to my choice. And there's a benefit or loss depending on what time and when I sell or buy these shares. So that was like my first introductory to investing. And I guess it's not the most traditional way, right? Because they were actually given to me, but I got a taste of what it's like to have something that can move up and down in terms of the value of it. and I make a decision whether or not I want to keep it or sell it.
Yeah.
So that was cool. I live in Oakland. And
what question, did you know any of the verbiage or the terminology in investing when you got the equity, or was it just more or less like, here, just some shares you had in your account and you're like, well, I don't know what the hell is going on. I just see that the numbers are getting higher.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So I think actually naively, I didn't care to know when I first got it. I didn't know all the differences between, an ISO or an RSU, right?
Okay.
And so ISO, instead of stock unit, there's some tax benefits to getting granted certain shares versus others, common stock, preferred stock. And so at Google, because it's late stage, you're granted RSUs, or I think they call them GSUs at Google. But they're treated differently, and their tax is like personal income. So it's just like cash.
And if it's okay, could you just explain what the GSU is, just for the audience so they know?
Yeah.
Like, it's an abbreviation of something?
Yeah. So I think like the public, the common phrase is restricted stock unit. I think at Google they called it Google stock unit, but it's pretty much a restricted stock unit.
Okay.
Which, like I said, is just treated as additional income within an equity format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, man. So I guess in that process though, like what motivated you to move onward with investing? Did you just have that equity within the company then and there? Or then you saw this and you saw some of your gains and you're like, well, I wonder how can I grow this more? So how about I go public into the stock market individually and just invest a little bit more? Or did you just kind of keep that equity for what it was at that moment?
I live the regular life. I wish I thought just how you're thinking now, because I didn't think that way. I was definitely, it just wasn't a priority for me to learn about investing at that point, but I did know at least what it was and what it did, right? And what I thought was really cool is that I ended up not selling my Google shares, because to me, I was just like, I don't need the money, so I decided not to sell. And I figured like Google's something that, it's just gonna do well over the long term. And to his case, it ended up being true. And so those shares have grown a large multiple since I first had it, about, I guess, 12 years ago now.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that, when I first got introduced into investing, I didn't immediately say, hey, like, this is cool, now let me go into the stock market and start buying other shares. I just kind of noticed it for what it was and appreciated it. But like, I think in my head at the time, I was still under the impression that you needed to have a certain amount of money to really gain access into the stock market thing. Like, it just wasn't really exposed to me as something that I felt like I could do.
Yeah.
Even though I had some, exposure to it from, an employee standpoint, it wasn't yet in my mind frame to be like, oh, this is cool. Now let me do this for myself and see what I can do. Because it just seemed so out of reach. I didn't know anybody who was doing it. It wasn't like in my conversations that I was having with friends at that time. So yeah, I would definitely be like carving out my own path if I went down that rabbit hole of trying to learn how to invest, because it wasn't like my peer group was doing that either.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that was like my motivation to having this podcast, and why I've always embraced, or rather say this is grassroots, because that was kind of my experience. So the first episode, I talk about my trading experience, and I literally got to stock investing just from a Google search of like how to build wealth, and just kind of learning what disposable income, discretionary income, and all this other ways. And like one of the main articles and themes that would pop up in these searches is just, investing, buying these stocks, get long-term growth. And of course, like walking into it, it almost seemed like this like euphoric lifestyle. Like you have to be this person. There's definitely a facade to stock investing. Mm-hmm. And like, to me, that facade is like, you're this well-to-do white guy in a business suit out of New York.
Right.
And it's funny you said that, like, you thought that you had a certain amount of money, and I always felt the same way. Like, this is something for the rich guys.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's nothing like that. And right. I don't know where it's come from and who designed the stock market. I feel like this is something I probably would have to dive deep, go down that rabbit hole and find out. But like, why is the setup like, why is the stock market set up the way it is? Because it looks very intimidating. You seeing all these numbers, you seeing green and red, and then you seeing this high fluctuation of volatility of these bars, tickers, candlesticks, all type of stuff.
Right.
So just coming in, not knowing shit about anything, I can easily see someone look at that and it's like, okay, this is just too much for me. Like, I'm staying away from this.
Yeah.
But once you're actually in it, you realize it's very, very simple and it's not as hard as intimidating as it looks.
Not at all. Not at all. And the thing that bothers me about it is that, like, how it's just so glossed over in our education system to not even acknowledge it, right? It's like it's designed in a way that they don't want you to know. You know, it feels like it's like, okay, yeah, you got to kind of be in the know to be able to get into this world of stock market and investing. You hear about it all the time, but it's, you know, we're not taking a class in this in high school. We're not taking, you know, we're learning algebra 5 or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not going to use this, but I could have really used an investment 101 class in high school, right? I could have really used a credit, you know, 101 class in high school, or finance, you know, just some general knowledge that I would have found way more useful than some of these other courses. So to me, it feels very intentional that, you know, if you're not in these circles, like how I mentioned before, how like my peer groups weren't investing. So based on that, I wasn't really thinking too deeply about it because it wasn't in my conversations. It's just now in the past, like 2-3 years, been something I'm having conversation within my friend group, you know? Yeah. And I don't know if that's tied to, you know, we're being in a place now where we have, you know, a different level of income where just maybe we just don't want our money to just sit in the bank now. Yeah. We're like, okay, let's figure out what to do with this. Yeah. Or, you know, if we're just now reading more, just feeling more confident and understanding that, okay, this is something I can actually learn and invest more time in and have access to, right? And so, I wish that I did. I wish, you know, when I first got those Google shares, it would have sparked something in me to say, now let me jump into other places, you know, because it's been a bull market for the last 10 years and I could have, you know, done a lot of things, but, you know, that's how life works. Sometimes you got to live and you learn. My mom told me too, years ago, she was like, you need to get into investing. And I just kind of brushed it off and didn't really, it wasn't a focus of mine, but
yeah, I mean, and it's layers to it. I mean, there's a lot of complexities. Like stock investing is only one component of investing, but there's a series of things that you can invest. I think I even made an example, like an investing can be you seeing it now with like non-fungible tokens, and it seemed like this novelty thing only because it's digital coins. But you know, in retrospect, it's like if you bought a baseball card of like some valuable player during that time in that season. And if you hold the card for years and years and years, the player retired, probably even passed away. The value goes up. Sure. Like that's a form of investing. Yep. But yeah, I mean, franchise investing, real estate, all type of things. Right. I just focus on stock investing primarily for myself because that's kind of where I see most of my benefits is in regards to profiting. Yep. But yeah, it's funny. Another point that you had made, I actually had a guest on the show. He's in episode 5 named Sean, and he was telling me he's an older gentleman, like in his, I think pushing close to his 50, if not 50 already. But he was saying that, you know, there was a period in time, like maybe I think in the 80s and 90s where like the stock market was only for investors. Like you have to work within that industry or that group. You got to be part of some financial institution.
Like accredited investor.
Yeah. Sure. But I think it was even different then. Like even as an accredited investor, you can still be an individual in the stock market. You just have certain privileges, right? Yeah. But this one was like you had to work for a company. Oh, like be part of a hedge fund or something.
Yeah. Another way is to lock people out, right?
Yeah, and he was saying that you know, it was just so crooked back then that like over time they just had to make it more transparent. Yep. And they gave people the opportunity to kind of come in, and that's when you have like the IPO. Yep. You have individuals on a small scale that kind of comes in and they can invest, but it wasn't always like that. You had to pretty much be, you know, an insider, and I think that's probably where the facade came from of being this rich guy from Wall Street. Yeah, it probably originated from that, but then over time, I think that, you know, people have become smarter. And I think like a podcast like this, like us just being regular individuals, talking about investing, and then certain companies actually give you certain equity. I'm figuring that's probably something that's new. Maybe 15 years ago, it wouldn't be like that. So I think that shows the progression. And I think, in an ethical economy or ethical, what am I trying to say? Oh, ethical capitalism. I think that the competition is supposed to push all of us forward and that we can all move forward. But then we need that level of competition so we can kind of stay motivated and to push hard.
Yep.
But I just think the problem with that, what makes it toxic, is that you have those that are greedy. And, and I feel like that probably was the problem back then. But now things are more transparent and then more people have the tools. We're starting to see this grassroots foundation. And, fortunately, I think this is like an example.
Right.
But but it's good that you kind of branched off now. And like, where are you now with stock investing? Are you still just kind of relying on your company? Or you made that branch and you built the portfolio, you diversified it?
So after Google, I joined Twitter, and this was before it went public. And so that was another lens of investing that I learned about, which is like joining a company pretty early on, with the whole incentive that it would have the value of the equity or the stock would grow substantially, and then it'll go public, and then it'd be real cash, right? And so I joined Twitter like pretty late in terms of a startup, but it was still before it went public. And I saw how some of my friends, when I joined Twitter, joined super early at Twitter. And they literally like were able to retire, after Twitter was public, right? And I was just like, okay, I get it now. Like this is the game that people play in the Bay Area, right? To more or less strike it rich, by joining a company early enough, and then seeing the value of their equity go up and up and up, the earlier they get in, and then eventually goes public. And so I was, my focus was that. My focus was not at that time to play the stock market game. It was more for like, in terms of equity, it was more about like get into a company to get that early equity that eventually get to the stock market, right? And have like a good amount of early shares in a company, right? So then I joined Lyft pretty early. Luckily that did well, and that went public. And then after Lyft, I joined another self-driving car company, which hasn't gone public yet, but hopefully the objective is that it will in a year or two. Who knows? Yeah.
Okay, nice, man.
Yeah.
So I guess let's move into the topic. Sure. I don't want to go too far into your personal endeavors.
Yeah,
just wanted to hear like the backstory.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. So the topic: what is your dream investor lifestyle? So off the air, I know we kind of talked about it. I think one of the questions you asked me, like, what do you think you want to do next after San Francisco? And then it kind of aligned to investing, but I was telling you like I want to make X, Y amount of dollars, and then probably buy like a vacation home somewhere in another country. So my investor lifestyle is, it's just that. Probably live somewhere in another country. I think I gave you an example about the whole dividends. Probably try to have a substantial dividend portfolio where I could just make money off dividends, keep my account in the United States while I live abroad.
Yep.
And then, I don't know, just do something creative, like being an artist and designer. I'll probably just go out there and try to freelance.
Yeah.
Depending on where I am, if I'm somewhere in Latin America or somewhere in Asia, I can just give a little bit of American influence through my art.
Yeah.
And actually, I have a personal friend. He's from New York. He's heavily into stock investing, and actually he has a degree in finance, and that's what he does in Hong Kong. So he has an account in America where he invests, and then he has an account in Hong Kong where he invests. But, his foundation is source of income in Asia, or rather in Hong Kong, because he's an artist, he's a painter. So he sells paintings by commission.
Dope. That's cool.
Yeah. So there's various ways. I think this is a cool topic to talk about, because just for people that have money. So like, let's say if you're a newbie and you come in and you invest, and let's just say that you're lucky, you do good at it, and you make all this money. Obviously, with all this money, you have to have a plan. And I mean, that's another facade that like me personally, I kind of want to dismantle that. You make all this money and you buy the house and you buy the car and you blow it. And it's like, no, I mean, you can have more meaning to that. Part of that investor lifestyle of me wanting a vacation home, I don't know if I really talked about this in detail. I might have mentioned this in the past episodes, but I come from a poor background. I got family members that never left Chicago. I have friends that never left Chicago. I'm from the South Side, inner city kid. But then just seeing like how I've developed over the years and understanding finances and wealth, like I want to have a vacation home to allow my family to have access to travel. So in any circumstance that I have a home in, like I said, somewhere in Latin America, whatever part of the world, I can always, I can invite a cousin, an uncle, niece, whoever, and say, hey, just come to this country. You don't have to worry about anything. So that's the thing with wealth. Like wealth to me is just kind of building a bridge and creating a legacy and a foundation with your family. It's not this thing that you can show off, have all these tangibles. I mean, that's one aspect of it. That's the entertainment part. But to me, that's not really the foundation. And my buddy, I was supposed to start this podcast with, unfortunately, he's not able to do it. He's just been a frequent guest. But he mentioned a point where it's like, stock investing doesn't solve social issues, which I agree. And I don't think investing is just going to take someone out of poverty. Mm-hmm. We love the rack the riches story, but it's just not that true. If it was that easy, we all would be successful. But I do think that it's very important, especially in this world that we live in now, that people should have all access. Yeah. And when we talk about representation, we just fucking said this from the beginning of the podcast that we all have this perception on who an investor is. Yeah. But if you got some young kid, let's say just from the inner city or just anywhere, and they see a guy like me and I'm talking about investing, they can relate to that and resonate with that a lot more than seeing as well to
y'all look alike, you talk alike, similar background. I mean, all of that is super important to you feeling like you can do this.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So for you, like what's an investor lifestyle ideally? Or to simplify the question, like what's your importance of investing in the money that you have?
Yeah, for me, it's all about financial freedom. That is my goal. That's been my objective once I started investing, is like, I never saw myself or have any, I never wanted to be like a billionaire. This isn't something like I want to be super, super rich. I want to have enough wealth to secure myself, my future family, and if I have more than that, my loved ones after that. And secure means, I would love to be in a place where I don't have to worry about money. That to me is the goal, right? Where I can wake up every day, do what I love and whatever I love, and not have to do it based solely on a paycheck at the end of the day, right? Like just what I love to do. And I mean, I don't even have a clear idea of what that looks like, where it's like, okay, I don't have like a clear, like this is my passion and that like I will do this for free. But I know that if I achieve financial freedom, what that does is give me the options, right? To be able to pick and choose and do and not have to feel like, the stress of the underlying tone. I need to pay bills at the end of the day. So I don't want to have that. So for me, that's my goal, right? My dream and my purpose of investing behind that.
Well, you said an important word. Yeah. Options. To have when you have options, you're in a really, really good position in life.
That's the one thing I probably got from my mom and that she banged into my head every day when growing up. It's like, you want to give yourself options. When I was like getting good grades or whatever, or not getting good grades, her whole thing was like, go to college, get yourself options, get good grades and give yourself options. And now later in life, earn the money you need to earn, right? So that you give yourself options. Yeah. I want to be in a position where if I don't like the job, I can quit. Yeah. I don't want to feel like I need to stay there because I don't have the options to do so, right? I got to pay these bills, so I got to just stay in this job, right? So absolutely, for me, investing solves those problems. And then, once I'm in this place, what I call financial freedom, where I can, just do what I need to do. I can cover my family's expenses, whether that's education, housing, food, all that good stuff. And also lifestyle expenses. Like I want to not just have enough where I'm just scraping by. I want to have enough where I'm comfortable. Exactly. And not balling, but just comfortable, where I can take vacations, I can have a car that I like, have a house that I like, nothing crazy, but just what I like, Yeah. Yeah, that's it for me.
And I was going to say, not to interrupt, but diving deep even more into this topic, I think is important because you mentioned some really, really key points. But what I just got from that is realizing like, level of success is very subjective. Now, we just talked about that, like the whole facade of wealth. I mean, we do have this imagery where wealth is like you got 7 to 8 Lambos and you have a mansion. And for us, it's easy to say like that's wealthy. But no, like you can just be a very practical person, live within your means or even under your means and still be wealthy. Mm-hmm. And it's really just what you want out of life. Mm-hmm. And actually, I want to give this example to the audience just because it's relative in the time. Like I always stress that, you want to invest money that you're willing to lose. But in addition to that, it's always good to have a lot of money because you never know when a storm is going to come.
Hello.
Yeah. And like
yeah, that's true.
We were just talking about taxes earlier, right? And I just told you I had to pay this high ass tax. I had to pay $10,000, but it's crazy. You just never know when you're going to have curveballs like that, but it's good to have money where, like you said, you can just pay your bills. So yeah, it's stressful to pay that amount of money, but then I'm just happy that I'm in a place where I can pay that, I can afford it, and not stress over it.
Yeah. They're 1% problems, or when you got high tax, it means you have high income, right? So, I mean, they're what we call probably good problems, right? Like you got to pay to play. That's just how it works. And when you get really savvy, I'm not there yet. There's ways to obviously reduce your taxes when you start owning a lot of things, right? So
that's true.
People who really understand how this game is made and how it's structured can make a ton of money and pay minimal taxes.
Absolutely.
Which is that next level that I need to somehow tap into. Yeah,
man. I mean, that's the bone I have with America. Like, because there is systems in place. Like there's systems in place that kind of keep people deprived, but then there's a level of accountability too. That what makes it complex, in my opinion. That's the irony that's from it. And because I really believe, and I could be naive to say this and people can go against it, but I do believe that America has enough resources that we all could benefit. But I think the problem with America is because we have this caste system of the rich and the poor, and then what's propagated to us. There's so many things that distract us. And like I said, the imagery of being wealth. Like, I feel like the average American would think that I have to have that car and that big house to feel like something.
Right.
It's just that privilege aspect. And, I had made that joke to you early off the air. Like, I had a friend that told me that this always resonated with me. And just in my adult life, I experienced that and I lived that. But when I was looking for a place to live in San Francisco, like I moved when the city just inflated. So these high ass prices. And I just told myself, like, man, I did the roommate stuff in college. I'm a grown man. I got money. Like, why do I have to subject myself to a roommate?
Right.
This makes no sense. And I found this place. It was in a rough neighborhood, the Tenderloin. If anyone knows the Tenderloin, it's a rough place. I'm not gonna get into detail about it, but I found a place for like $900. And when I found the place, it had everything that I needed. But I was so concerned about like the neighborhood, and it was a small, very small micro studio. And I was just afraid what I would be perceived. It's like that validation. And my friend was like, look, man, you young, you just on a hustle. Like, you just want to be about that money and be focused. And he was like, and he told me, he was like, man, you get this stuff because you want to, quote unquote, attract women specifically, just me being a male. But I'm going to keep it general, but you want to attract people. But if you're not seeking any validation, man, it's all about just building a foundation for yourself and starting off somewhere.
Right.
And he was like, man, people are sleep in a cardboard box if they could,
Sure.
had you a little cardboard box with a kitchen and a closet. And you only paying like $50 a month.
Yeah.
But you got a job making $100,000 a year. I'm pretty sure it'd be a handful of people that'd choose that option just to build wealth, and then they get out of it soon.
Right.
And you left that example with the whole tech thing. These people, they work for these tech companies. They go public. They make money off the equity, set them up for early retirement.
Right.
So that's what you got to look at. And what I've learned from what I know, not even just in investing, but just in finance in general, is that you work hard when you're young.
Yeah.
Because you have the energy. You have the health, and everything is new to you. That gives you every opportunity to explore, to experiment, to fail and succeed.
Yeah.
But you work smarter when you're older. So when you're young, you live in that shitty ass apartment and you work 4 or 5 jobs because you got the energy to do it.
Right.
But while you're doing that, you got to make sure that you building a financial base. And then once you have a financial base, then that's when you're in a space where you work smart, and then you start to use that money to make you more money.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. And I would add to that and say, like, while you're young, invest while you're young too, something if you can, obviously. Right. But I think that the thing that I didn't put enough time and thought into is like the whole long-term investing, betting on the American economy, betting on the American system, which basically over time pretty much is always gone up. Like, there's blimps, obviously, like last year we had a blimp. 2008 we had a blimp.
We're in a blimp now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're in a blimp, where it's like things go down, things go back up. But like if you're in it for the long term,
Yeah.
you're going to be all right, you know? And
Absolutely.
so like going to like dollar cost averaging where you like more or less just put money in every week, you know, or every time you have a paycheck coming in, right? You're going to invest a little bit because you're not worried about selling anytime soon because you're betting on the long term. I think like in hindsight, if I had done it straight out of college, just heavily invested, because at the time, I mean, I had no bills. I mean, granted, my bills haven't changed that much from then, but like I literally had like no bills, you know?
Bro.
So, you know, as life goes on, you know, you get married, you have kids and other things, it's harder to take those risks.
Yeah.
It's harder to take, you know, those chunks of money and just throw it into a market. But when you're young, you know, you can do that. You can do that. So I would recommend to anyone out there, if you have some disposable income after, you know, you got your goose egg of savings, your emergency fund, and, you know, you able to budget yourself properly. Like, don't just let the money just sit in the bank after all, you know, you saved up what you need to save, because you're not doing yourself any favors by letting it just sit there. Yep. So take that risk, put it into, you know, index fund, put it into a mutual fund, whatever it is, get a financial advisor, and just, you know, bet on the long term. You don't have to touch it. Just keep it in there every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, you know, just see it grow. It might go down. Don't get scared, you know, because you're not worried about touching it, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing it at 20 years old and you don't touch it for another 20 years or whatever, then you're going to be fine, because it's going to be better than if you just if you just put it in a savings account and let your money just, you know, you want your money to sweat. You don't want it to sit there and get fat, right? You want it to work.
No, absolutely.
So,
yeah, but we did an episode, me and a buddy, and I agree with you totally, but I always have this thing, and I'm not saying that you're saying this. It's just what you're saying just made this pop up. But, you know, I've heard this from just, I call them rookie investors, but I just heard these from people before when they say, yeah, all investing is you just buy a share and you forget about it because it's going to grow over time. But like you said, you go through so many blimps and it's really unpredictable, especially if you had something for a long time. Yeah. Like every so often the storm does just hit the market. So it's all about like determining when is a good time to sell. Yeah. And I think that's very, very important. I'm paying attention to that more and more and more, because I even told you, like with the whole crypto thing, the crypto just crashed recently and I made a substantial amount of money with crypto, but I didn't sell. And I just feel like that it's going higher and higher and higher, but I'm still feeling kind of at a loss. Yeah. Even though we know that it's going to go higher or it's going to recover. Yeah. It's like, for me, I could have just sold at least and then bought back into the dip. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, so I guess when I'm saying like betting on the market, I'm not betting on individual stocks, because I think that's a bit of a risk. If you're a conservative investor, you know, you can spread yourself thin by like, you know, a less risky mutual fund, right? Where it's like, okay, I see I'm not going to get huge gains over time. I mean, in the short term, but this is like a long-term thing for me to bet on this. Now, if you're betting on like, you know, Tesla and you want to put more money every couple of weeks into one particular stock, that's risky, because Elon Musk might be, you know, go crazy in a couple of years and all of a sudden it tanks. He's already a funny guy as it is, you know? And so like, I guess this is like betting on the market in general, right? Not like an individual stock or individual, you know, cryptocurrency. Yeah, don't put your eggs in one basket. Is what you're saying. Spread, you know, spread yourself across many different stocks so that you're going to get some ups and downs. But overall, if the market is the market over a 50-year or I don't know, like let's maybe not 50 years, but like 10, 15, it's going to recover even if there's a downturn, right? It's going to eventually move back up. So yeah, it's for me, it's better to put your money into something and then just tend to not put it in at all. Yeah, well, going back to the topic, the investor lifestyle, and I think that's where that whole idea benefits, because thinking long term and growing money over time, that's when it'd be a good time to really develop a plan. Like, and I think you should ask yourself, once you have all this money, what do you plan to do with it? And I think it's important for people to kind of intuitively think about it. And the reason why is because once you get the money, you know, it's so easy to blow it. And that's the thing. You don't want to blow money that took you years and years and years to accumulate.
Yep.
And I mean, and I'm not saying this as a negative thing, but you know, like you said, when you get married and you have kids, your priorities changes. It's harder to take those risks.
Yep.
So then, like, that's something to think about. Ideally, what type of household do you want? How many kids that you want? You know, start to think about like the ideal neighborhood you want to live in, the state or whatever location, or any place in the world. Tuition, all that stuff, you know, all applies. And the only reason I stress that because I don't want people to just think that investing is all about just making money. And I mean, and again, if you want to talk about investing, how it could tackle social issues, I think that's one component is that association with greed. Is like, I think it's good that we can make money, but you always have to be aware of not being greedy and understand that having money could serve a positive purpose. I'm not saying I don't want to sound cliche and say give back. You know, you work for that money. It's your money. So it's your choice if you want to give back or not. Mm-hmm. But you can build a base where people can benefit without you even giving back if you use that money responsibly. Mm-hmm. And if that purchase serve a purpose. Like I told you, that vacation home, like relatively a vacation home, that is somewhat of a privilege. But then the opportunity that I'm setting is I can have a family or even a friend or anyone that I invite. They always have a place to go into another country. Yep. And, you know, save that way. Yep. So that's some significance.
Sure. Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, you know, going back to what I was saying, like money gives you options. So, you know, what you do with those options are up to you. Yeah. You know, maybe it's to your point, like giving back, having money to give to organizations that you care about, giving scholarships to kids in need going to college. There's many things you can do once you have those options, but you got to get to that place where you can create those options first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then like another with that is the more money, more responsibility too. So
more money, more problems.
Yeah, I want to have a good episode just about paying taxes in the stock market. I think you saw the document. I think that was a topic on the list. Okay. It's just I would need someone that does taxes. So I think that's my personal goal is to find a tax professional. Yeah. And just have him on the podcast.
Yeah, and that's another thing, guys. Like I've learned the hard way. You got to get a good tax professional like early, like, and a financial advisor. You know, it's just a headache. And if it's not your strong suit to do taxes, don't be a hero. Don't try to do it yourself. You know, you'll end up costing yourself more money in the long run. So get somebody who knows what they're doing, because once you start getting into the game of trying to accumulate wealth in more than just a W-2, you know, things can get complicated, you know, and